All right. I see the live. I think we're live. Stacy, do you see it on your end? I
I
see.
do see it now.
Okay, perfect. So sorry about that, guys. Again, back. We're live. I'm your host, DJ Flores. Again, the Robin Hood Capitalist. With me, my coach and yours. I am remote, so hopefully that's not why we're having technical difficulties. I mean, my signal's strong, so I know it's not that. But the show must go on. So that's why I'm here from the car. I couldn't reschedule our guest that we have, Coach, and I can't wait to bring him on because I was kind of giving you a little of the backstory before we went live, and we had connected when I was doing the previous podcast with Dan, and just loved what he was doing on LinkedIn. Loved his ideas of how he was kind of using the platform of LinkedIn and using his podcast, which is the Master Connector Show. Obviously, Coach, from our voices, we are both connectors, so clearly there's some similarities there that we'll definitely touch on. But before we bring him out, Coach, how was your Easter? How's everything?
It's actually a wonderful weekend. It was a typical Easter for us. So there's Friday night, Good Friday service at church, and Saturday do some prep work for Sunday, and then Sunday the Easter service, and everything was awesome. My daughter and son-in-law were down for a visit, and my Wolfpack won a couple of games, and we've got men and women in the Final Four. So what a weekend altogether! I can't complain about anything from the weekend.
Oh, I love it. No wonder you're just sitting there, just smiling, good from grit. And I knew, I wanted to tell you that. So I'm glad. I don't usually, I'm not a huge college fan, sports fan, as much as the pros, but I have been keeping an eye out because I see an NC State, so I am secretly rooting you guys all the way. So Wolfpack it
There we
is.
go.
Wolfpack it is. And I mean, obviously, it fits what we have here. But yeah, that's exciting. Now you said normal Easter, but definitely not normal for us. So we're here in Cleveland, and it's so different. But it's been amazing. My sister-in-law, one of my sister-in-law's birthdays is ended up being the day before Easter. So they came in because they had spring break the week before. And so they were in Mexico and came in, and we celebrated her birthday and then got the family together at my brother's house. So had some time with my parents and my brother, and now we're here at my sister-in-law's spending some time on the other side. And it's just been you know how that goes when you're the holidays, visiting. It's that Four Christmases all over. All I think of is that movie, Four Christmases, where they have to go to, do all the Christmases. But
Well,
it's fun.
for one show at least, your Cleveland connection is really a good Cleveland connection.
I'm back here, y'all. I am back here, and so before we bring him out again, Steve Spiro is our guest. He is the host of. Let me put up his graphics since I have them. He is the host of the Master Connector Show, which you'll see here. This is one of his recent shows and guests. Um, that is the new host that we'll talk about, new co-host. And then this is his book that I can't wait to dive into. The Tao of Master Connector. Obviously, this is from my Audible. I've been listening to it. It is on Audible as well, y'all. So if you are an Audible fan, don't like to read. Although, shout out to Steve. Thank you for sending me the signed book. I truly appreciate that. And then again, shout out to Steve for the graphics. So, Coach, I know we talked about this, but I did have it. Your thoughts were it looks like a movie poster, and I thought, oh my God, yeah, it does. It really pops and just makes the character stick out, which is kind of what we try to do here, right? I mean, we want people's stories to be compelling, and man, have they been like
Yeah. Well,
yes.
I wouldn't have expected any less of a graphic from a Master Connector. That one hits, so that was good. Yeah, very happy with the final product there.
I am too. So thank you, Steve. We'll have to talk about that when you come out. And then so can't wait to dive into his book and the show. But so we met when he was just doing the Master Connector. I don't know if he had even talked about his book at the time. Maybe he did. I think he was just talking about it or working on it. But then he had him on the show. It was amazing. I knew following him and then seeing he had the book out, we had to have him back on to talk about the book. The four pillars. I can't wait for him to get into a little bit of that. The foundation, it's so weird just hearing the book and the way that he uses a lot of these things. You'll see some interconnections there, and so I think that's where we really connected. But just a good dude, truly authentic, introvert. We share that same kind of backstory. And then again, I think I shared this with you before we went live, Coach. But one of the things that stuck with me and the advice he gave was his goal is to meet three new people every day. And so,
Strangers,
guys,
three new strangers.
three new strangers, and I promise you, the power, Steve, I'm sure will share. But the power you get from that, with the knowledge, the stories, the information, and all is well worth it. But I can't wait to bring them out, Coach. Any thoughts before we get this going?
I'm sold. Let's go.
I love it.
You get one heartbeat song. Take it seriously. This is your masterpiece. Don't forget to dream and taste the colors in the air you breathe. It's your masterpiece. Go ahead and feel it all. Don't stop till it is beautiful. Don't stop till it is beautiful. Don't stop till it is beautiful.
All right. Were you able to see the video there, Coach? I'd seen it in flick at the end, but
Yeah, it
yeah.
actually played pretty steady.
Okay, good. It was not on my side. I see no video. I heard the music. So I am definitely having issues over here. But hey, it works. And you've seen it on your end. And we are still live. So, and I really, again, everybody, the Robert Capitalist, our guest this episode is Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, host of the Master Connector, live on LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you better get hit to it. He'll tell you why as well. But before we bring him out, he has this amazing sizzle video we were kind of talking about. So check it out.
Steve Spiro, you're a mentor, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, but most importantly, you're a host of your own show and you're also a master connector.
Steve Spiro is one of my idols, and I love listening to everything that he does. He's such a dynamic individual.
Some of the topics I really enjoy speaking on is how to really connect, whether it be in person or through social media. I love to lead with my weaknesses. I lead with, my vulnerabilities. It's fine because I'm okay with who I am. Number two is how to go from being inward focused, self-focused, into others focused. Be willing to give and go out there and look to serve. That will attract the right things. Another one is on leveraging LinkedIn to really grow your business. You could reach a lot more people. You could broadcast a message to people that actually consented to want to know you. And then lastly, overcoming big obstacles. I love sharing. I was a shy, introverted kid, picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, really in a dark place. I was really in a box in a shell, and I've been able to break out of that box. And so I love being able to inspire people and really help them. So the Master Connector was born. The world is my networking event. Right? I meet people all the time. My goal is to meet 3 strangers every single day.
Steve is open to meeting you. You should set up a face-to-face with Steve. One little conversation can really change your life.
And here he is. What's up, man? I love that. And shout out to Cameron. What's up, Steve? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. Good to see you, DJ and Stacy. And what's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. Got to do it.
Yes, do it. Please, yeah. Again, hey, this is your show now. You're the guest, but you get to run it and kind of talk about you. But again, thank you for giving us the time and joining us. Obviously, when we connected, this was, it was probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
a while ago, and then so had you on. I loved what you were doing then with the Master Connector show. Now, I'm glad to see it's still going strong.
Yeah.
Love the graphic, and thank you again for sharing that graphic with us.
Absolutely.
We will definitely use it. But if you could, I guess give everybody a little backstory of to who is Steve Spiro. How did the Master Connector show kind of form, and then obviously I got to get into the book too because I can't wait
Yeah.
to dive into it.
Sure. Well, there's a lot there, right? I mean, a lot of years of experience, but yeah, I mean, as you heard on the video, which by the way, appreciate you playing that. We're in the process of doing a new scissor reel, which actually this might be a little part of it. We'll see. But
Ah,
born and raised in the Bronx, very very shy and introverted, as I said in the video, right? Picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, and I was actually I wound up going into the advertising industry, did very well, had a very illustrious career, and then eventually pivoted into technology. But along the way, I met a very, very successful entrepreneur who challenged me, as you heard on the video, to meet three strangers every day, and which is still going on today. I mean, I still do it. I love doing it. It's been wild, and I've grown a huge network. And along the way, I started to amass a big LinkedIn following, and what happened was I started doing these videos. I called them Fire to Friday Master Connector Tips. Actually, my co-host today, he challenged me and said, you should think about doing video. You want to show the world you could speak? Because I was thinking about pursuing a speaking career, get some video out there. So I did that, did those videos, 2 years solid, and got a lot of buzz from that. It actually became the foundation to my book, which so then and then we I found out, I applied for LinkedIn Live. I said for the heck of it, what the heck, kicks and giggles, I put my application. Well, within about 5 weeks, I got approved, which was shocking to me, and I was like totally over my head. So I reached out at the time. Cameron was he was doing a show. I was impressed with his show. His show wasn't on LinkedIn Live, but it was a live broadcast, network TV production quality. And I told him my dilemma. He's like, dude, I've been trying to get on LinkedIn Live for 2 years. We should collaborate. So we partnered up for quite a while. November 2020 created the Master Connector show, and the irony is he's now back doing his event staffing stuff. But over the last 16 or so episodes, the irony is that my new co-host is the friend of 27 years who told me to go do video. And so Rob Genovese is the co-host. We've had now this week's show, tomorrow's show is going to be our 157th episode. It's
Nice.
incredible. We're just amazing. I don't know if you know who Ruben Gonzalez is. He wrote a book called The Courage to Succeed. He's called the Luge Man. He was from Argentina and had a dream to be an Olympic athlete at 22. So way later in life, but Argentina does not have winters, so he was able to convince a lot of people to be sponsored as the luge guy for Argentina and made it to the Olympics and wrote a book. And so he's going to be a guest on our show. I just booked him today. So that was wild. That was incredible
congrats,
for us.
man. That's
Amazing
awesome.
guest. Bob Berg has been on. You've been on, DJ. So, I mean, listen, DJ Flores has been on our show, man. I can go home right now, So,
Stop it, man.
and,
Stop it.
and
Yeah, I heard you mention Bob too. Bob's such an amazing. Bob Berg is shout out to Bob Berg. Amazing dude.
he's
The
great.
go
Yeah.
getter.
Yeah. Talk about connectors. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and then the book came about, right? And so the interesting thing is, I knew as a speaker, you need to have a book. Everyone says you should have a book. But learning disabled and not having the bandwidth to be able to write a book, I'm like, I don't know. So and there's a whole bunch of stories I could go into if you ever want to, maybe over beers, whatever. But the book actually is transcriptions of my Fire to Friday Master Connector videos. We put it into a book form, and actually it's been amazing, and the feedback has been incredible. And like you said, there's 4 pillars, and the name is the Tao of a Master Connector. Tao meaning the way or path. It's not a religious thing. It's not Taoism. It's just the way. And the subtext, there it is, right? The subtext is the way an introvert became a master connector. So thank you for that. Yeah, but that's it's been awesome. Like you said, it's on Audible as well. I do have my voice in the beginning and the end of the book, but it is a narrator, because if I had to be the guy reading the whole thing, I mean, I just did some reading of a small amount of script at this video I'm putting together today. And it was really, I mean, we had to do like 16 takes. So I can't imagine reading a whole entire book,
Oh, my goodness.
even if it
Yeah,
was five
no.
words. And I wrote the script, by the way, as well. So forget about it. There it is, my New
Yeah,
York. Forget it.
I love it. Thank you for bringing that out. But and I'm glad you mentioned that because first got the Audible again as soon as you mentioned it, I downloaded it, and then I kick it on, and I hear you mention I'm not going to read the whole thing. So you did your intro, and again, great intro. I love your introduction to it. So
Appreciate that.
kudos, amazing. And I love that you talked that your tribe is your vibe. I like that was part of the intro. And
Appreciate
so
that. Yeah.
if we could get into that, because I know you're big on community, and that's why you really went with the Master Connector show. So, like, what I guess what was the big vision, or is there even a bigger vision to the book, the speaking, and what's
Yeah, I
next?
mean, the ultimate vision, and I was sharing this today when I was speaking to a group of people. And I got videoed on that too. But so that what being an inward focused guy my whole life, because I was just, when you're wounded and broken, the only thing you could think about is self preservation, self protection. So I was, I didn't the last thing I thought about was ever to be a master connector and ever be a speaker, right? If we, I mean, think about that. That's a contradiction into itself. But I felt like the more I was others focused and I shared those vulnerabilities, those insecurities, the better I felt about myself. I knew I was impacting people, impacting the world. So ultimately, my long term vision and why I do the show, what I wrote the book is to be paid to speak and to travel the world, speak and inspire and be a beacon of light. Right. The mission to my book, the mission to what I do, the mission to our show is really to be the light, uplift, inspire, encourage. And so that's really if it. And I believe that that my light, I light somebody else's candle, and they light candles, and that the world is a brighter place. And that's kind of my mentality. So yeah, so that's the bigger vision is to, and in the show, the book is really a stepping stone for those things.
I love it. I love it, Coach. Come on, I know you got some questions here.
Yeah, so you got me thinking about this introvert and networking, and those two things don't always go together. I do a lot of assessments as a coach, and I run across a lot of folks who are like me. We have this internal me versus me type of a conflict where the assessment would tell you that I'm very extroverted, but in networking situations, I go really deep inside and I'm not, I don't enjoy it. It's not my thing. So were there any practical like tips or tricks or things you did that kind of helped you come out of that introvert side?
I'll let you know when it happens. But in all sincerity, I mean, that's half true. But, listen, one of the things that I talk a lot about when I speak is it's a heart posture. And I'm not saying, Stacy, that your heart is wrong or anything like that. But for me, I had to change my heart in that number one, I needed to feel that, and this took a lot of self work and self development. I need to feel like, okay, when I'm in a room, the room is better because I'm here. I'm going to add value somehow. So that's number one. And I believe a lot of that has come through tremendous amount of self development in terms of books and audios. I mean, I probably have hundreds and hundreds of books in this bald headed noggin. And I don't know, DJ, if you saw the change, but I used to have hair, you know? Yeah. I joined the club. I'm in the club again.
We're all in the club.
Actually, all three of us, right? We're in the club. But anyway, so there's so much of here, and I feel like I could offer it up to the world and give it to the world, right? So that's one thing, and the other thing is, being an introvert, it's like, oh man, I got to be on, and I got to come up with clever sayings and clever things, and it's intimidating. And I've read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People a lot of times. My mentor every year will basically, have you ever read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People? I'm like, yeah, every year since you've told me, it might be 7, 8, 10 years ago. I guess that's his clue of telling me I need to still work on my people skills. But in that book and several others, it talks about how there's a story of this man that's at this cocktail party, and he's speaking to this high society woman, and he might say 3 words and she just goes on and on, and he's like maybe saying 2 words or something just to get encouraging her to talk. And afterwards, the feedback he got from somebody else he knew is that she thought he was the best conversational ever, right? Conversationalist ever. And he hardly said 3 or 4 words, right? And so that also took the pressure off of me, is I don't have to be this, really dynamic, clever person. I just need to be curious and ask people, tell me about you and tell me your story, and learn to ask good questions and dig deeper, and go a few levels, as many levels as you can in those conversations. So being others focused, and then having so that heart change, and just asking questions. Those are some big things that I find. And I also learned is that the magic is in the follow up. You know, you're not going to create these incredible relationships at networking events. You're just not. It's just not possible. I mean, it's not practical either. You're there to meet people. So I'm pleasant. I make a good impression, but I'm out there to get as many connections as I can. I'm not prostituting or anything like that, but I'm later on, I'm gonna send an email or a text, and I'm going to suggest a follow-up conversation. I'll connect with them on LinkedIn, and in LinkedIn, they'll probably see a message what we should get on a call too, right? So those are some things, because the magic again is in the follow-up. One of the things, the reason I love virtual networking groups is, to your point, Stacy, it takes away that drama of having to have the courage and walk up to somebody and actually say, "Hi, my name is," and and actually get their business card. It's like it's still to this day, a traumatic experience for me. But I love when you're on the Zoom, or the Hollywood Squares of Zoom, and you can just right click a picture and just, hey, direct message them and say, "Hey, we should connect," and always give them a WIFM, right? I'm pretty well connected. I've got with WIFM, for those who don't know the sales world, it's what's in it for me. Okay. But it's, hey, I've got a big network. Perhaps I can make some introductions or add value or whatever. And we should talk, and so forth. And so I find it a lot better, but I still like both. I think there's value to virtual, there's value to in person. So hopefully that helps you, Stacy. And my guess is you've figured out a way. Being a coach, I'm sure you've got it all covered, but you're just trying to pick on me and see what I got to say.
No, I work with a lot of folks that deal with the struggle of getting themselves out there. So many business owners and folks at DJ and I talk to, we're giving and they're getting that same advice. Do video, get yourself out there. You're the best. You've got to be known, and it's hard to get them over that hump. What really finally got you to do that first video? Because I know the first one's the hardest and the worst. So what really got you over that hump to get out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big part of it is the fact that I finally got peace within myself. I'll tell a quick story. My sister has been in and out of therapy for years. She's fine. I mean, we're all fine. I've been on therapy too. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not putting down, but she spoke highly of this guy named Bob, who was her therapist.
Coaching is just another form of therapy. So
Yeah, basically, you're right. Yeah, but she spoke highly of Bob. He was a former pastor. He was just an overall very mature, very wise man. She spoke highly of him. So I was having some challenges, and I was trying to get through. Still feeling less than. I felt like I always played the comparison game and always fell short. I just never felt like I ever lived up. So I reached out, and I scheduled some sessions with Bob, and it was about an hour and a half drive, but it was worth it. And after a few sessions into it, telling my story, telling my challenges, and 3 or 4 sessions in, he says to me, "Steve, can I be honest with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, of course. I'm paying you. Please, that's what you're. I'm here. I need you to be honest." He says, "Listen, I have people that sit in the same chair and on the same couch that you're sitting, and they're messed up. They're pretty." He used the F-bomb. They're pretty effed up, right? But you're amazing. You're awesome. I mean, I heard you describe your life, like what you've accomplished. He's like, "You're awesome." And you know what? I just needed somebody to affirm me, and just somebody who could say you're okay. I mean, my dad never had that rite of passage as a kid. I didn't have that. My mentor has been great in my life, but he had a more of a kind of a college coach football, kind of yell at you, kind of like tell you what you're doing wrong, versus, "Hey, you're awesome," kind of like uplift you and accentuating your positives. He did some of that, but I always felt like I was just not enough. So to answer your question, this is a lot, Stacy, in terms of I'm giving you like a lot of the backstory to it. But so I needed to find first peace within myself that I'm okay. And I'm okay in my good and my bad and my ugly. And so I figured I'll just turn on the camera. You just turn at the time, my first videos were on my iPhone. I literally was in the car like you, DJ, and I just turned the camera on my phone and I started recording. And I said, it was Fridays, right? Because in the business development world, Fridays are pretty light afternoons. So it's Friday afternoon. I was like, Fired Up Friday, Master Connector Tips, right? I just like started calling it, and I just spoke from the hip, spoke from the heart. And if I stumbled, like I've done just in this broadcast, if I did a little stuttering, whatever, who cares, right? I convinced myself it's part of my authenticity,
Yeah.
which I think people appreciate. When you're so perfect, people, they don't relate to that. And again, if I'm going to be the master connector, you need to connect with people. And for me, being your true authentic self is all about that. And it breaks barriers down. It breaks walls down. So I just said, I'm just going to do, and I didn't edit them at all. Whatever they were, they were. Now, I will say there were times where I was a stammering idiot. So I just said, all right, delete. And I re-recorded. But, if I did a little stumble here or there, it's okay. And that was it. That was my first videos. And I did, like I said, at least 2 years of those every Friday.
I love that answer. I love that answer. I think authentic beats production quality any day, every day. So that's awesome. What was it that drew you for that being the message? What do you think is it that draws you to this whole idea of being the master connector?
I'll answer it this way, right? To me, as I grew this huge network, I didn't want to be called the master networker because I believe networking in general is considered along the lines of with prostitution and solicitation. It's kind of like this ugly feeling, right? But true connection is really what I started to realize is really more valuable. And I think the younger generation, but I think everybody can relate better. So to me, master connector, there's multiple puns in the name. Obviously, martial artists, so master connect, right? I can connect at master. Obviously, there's being a 4th degree black belt, the title master is in there. But connection, right? Like not just connection from a standpoint of just connecting, but true connections, meaningful connections, right? That was a big part of it for me. So also the ability to connect dots, introduce people. So there's a few meanings, right? I've got a spiritual walk and being able to, maybe help connect people to their, higher power or their, the source, if you will. So there's a lot of meanings to it. It's not just about networking. It's about true connection.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know you got something, DJ. I don't want to hog it. I'll go all day.
No. Keep going. I did have one that I did want to talk about, but I think it was more with the book. So yeah, if you have any more, unless you want to get into the book a little bit.
Well, but I guess before we do that, the background, so I have a similar background. I went from technology into the speaking, teaching, coaching world. We technology geeks, that's not typically a path that we take. So how was that transition for you? I know my story, but how was that transition going from a tech world into standing up in front of the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it's been mind blowing, if you will, right? I mean, I chose my initial first career was advertising, but I wasn't, and if you watch the movie Mad Men, that was the tail end of that era was the era I was in, but I was not like was it Dreiser? I forget his name in the show, right? I wasn't that guy. I was a creative, but he's got this charismatic approach, whatever. I was a graphic designer. So back then, not to date myself, there was no computers were just getting started. So I was going to be drawing in front of a table, a drafting table, and a T-square, and a X-Acto blade, and a number, one of these like really, drafting type pencils. That was going to be so I didn't have to deal with anybody. That was my initial, right? But to make the kind of money I wanted to make, because my family were broke and grew up, paycheck to paycheck as a kid growing up. I'm like, okay, I want to go into advertising. So, but still on the creative side, I thought I would be sort of sheltered. But eventually, I started to, we had to pitch ideas, and finding myself in conference room with clients and started to do some speaking. It was very nominal, very small. So that was a little piece of it. And then I wound up going in to the martial arts. I've got a double black belt, right? Fourth degree in karate, first degree in jujitsu. And I was a teacher in that. So, being in front of a class and, if you will, speaking. So I had some initial, it wasn't like black or white for me, right? And then the technology that I wound up getting into, full disclosure, was technology sales. So that was ironic in its own self. Why would an introvert go into sales?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense to me either. Yeah, they did, and they did pretty well at it. Moved around a bit, and then eventually to doing consulting in the business automation space today. But so I mean, I think whether I was a tech or not, it was really I was never supposed to be with a lot of people. I was just I really wanted to be the guy that was just left alone. In fact, I grew up, locked myself in the room of my house, and pretty much that was it. I had very few friends, if any. My friends were the characters on TV, Felix Unger from The Odd Couple, and Jackie Gleason, Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners, and Captain Jim Kirk from the original Star Trek series. Those were my friends, right? So I don't know. It's so bizarre to me, but my feeling is I've got this cause, this purpose on this planet, and that has pushed me to take me way outside of my comfort zone. And I'll say this one other thing, right? So for quite a few years, I could sit in front of the TV and watch, binge watch something and eat a pint of Haagen-Dazs butter pecan ice cream, and it feels so good, it tastes so good, but afterwards I feel like crap. And being introverted and self-focused is like that. It feels so good, but afterwards it kind of feels like crap.
Good analogy.
And I work out every day. I do a bunch of push-ups, sit-ups, etc., spin. I have to push myself. It's not like I can't wait to work out this morning. Like I got to push myself. But once I do, I feel great. And being others focused and speaking and networking and all that, and it's something I got to push, like working out. But afterwards, I feel phenomenal. And so I try to keep focus on how I feel afterwards, just like what motivates me from working out. I mean, it's not like when I work out today, I'm gonna like get in really good shape today, right? It's something, so you gotta take whatever you can, and in that case, maybe it's the good feeling, the endorphins you feel afterwards, right? There's like a little minor feeling. That's what keeps me going.
Yeah, cool. And you've mentioned martial arts a few times. That's interesting to me too. They're considered disciplines for a reason. That's I think an interesting term. But what are some lessons or parallels that you take from martial arts into, because now as you're a business owner, you're speaking, you're sharing your purpose and your message. How does that help, or has it helped?
It certainly has. There's so many lessons I could tell you. The first that comes to mind is that if you don't quit, you win. And, so I started training in the martial arts, very not talented. Okay. Later than I should have, as far as my age. And, short, small, short limbs, whatever. So just not the prototypical, but I basically outworked everybody and I outlasted everybody. I didn't quit. And I passed everyone but one person in terms of rank. The gentleman named John, when I first joined, he was 3 months after I joined. I watched him go up for his black belt test, and he had been training 15 years before that. So it took him that many years, and he was black belt. I passed everyone in my class when I finally backed away. Now, of course, some have continued on and they passed me now, but when I backed away, I passed everyone but John. I was a 4th degree black belt when I backed away from the martial arts, and he was a 5th degree. Everyone else I passed. And that was because I just hung in there. I stuck with it. I didn't quit, and I outworked everybody. It took me 3.5 years to make black belt in a class that typically a school studio or dojo that typically takes 10 years to make black belt. I did it in 3.5 because I just outworked everyone. I worked harder than anyone. I was in line, and if my sensei or instructor would be down on the other side of the wall of the lineup, most people next to me, to my left and my right, were kind of like they were just kind of doing it half-heartedly, but I was like all out. And not because of any other reason, but because of me. And I started to fall in love with myself. And I realized if you can outwork everybody, and you could eventually pass people in terms of success. That's one lesson. I mean, so many other lessons, right? I learned about find something that's your strength stone, and capitalize on it, right? I was growing, coming through the ranks in the arts, and I kept getting split eyebrows, split under the eyes, lip, you name it, all sorts of stitches because I'm short, and the guy I'm fighting, they can reach me, I can't reach them.
Mhm.
And so I finally learned, all right, I'm gonna make something my strength, and because I wasn't very flexible, it wasn't gonna be kicking. So I started to perfect my fist, my punches, my reverse punch. And I started just doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I was working in the city, and as I walked by a building, brick building, I would punch the brick, just to toughen up the fist. And at some point now, when I'm in training, got to a point where everybody knew that reverse punch was coming, and it was not stoppable. They could not stop it. And at the end of class, we'd be changing up at the end in a locker room, and we would see literally everyone would be like comparing their tattoos. Now, I'm not talking about ink. I'm talking about the red spot that they got from the red spot on their rib cage, or on their solar plexus from my punch that got in. Um, so I just learned how to just be creative, work with what I had, and capitalize on my strengths instead of trying to figure out, okay, I don't have long legs, and okay, what was me? But no, I found what worked for me, and I capitalized on it.
I, I want to go back to your first day, outwork the chart. So obviously David Goggins, I'm a huge fan of his whole idea of outworking the chart, and so that's what really drives me. But even more than that, as soon as you were talking about that, I thought of the captain, Derek Jeter, and his quote, which is, there may be more people have, there may be others who have more talent than you, but there's no excuse for anybody to outwork you. And I think like that's what people need to understand is like and then, so you were able to do it in, and you said the average is 10 years, you did it in 3.5. Even if it takes you 15, as long as you don't quit, you're going to do it. And so I love that you went there. And that's one thing I hope that more people will learn is it's not losing, it's learning. There's only wins and lessons. There is no losing, so there is no quitting. Just, you wanted enough. And so what was, I guess, what drove you enough to want to fight out? Well, obviously, to be, you said, was it truly just outworking your friends and outpacing them as far as the level of black belt, or what pushed it more? Because I know there's that inner. I've never. I feel like, at least for me, I'm never going to be satisfied. Like it's never done. Like the connecting is always going to go because of the magic, because of what else happens. Like there's nothing more than that. So what is it that drives you to keep doing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So, first of all, I didn't I didn't work harder and outwork everybody because of I was had my eyes to left and the right. I wasn't like comparing. I really it was a self-esteem thing. I felt better about me when I was working hard and outworking everyone and never quitting. I just started to fall in love with me, so to speak. And I know that maybe sound weird to people, but that's what it was for me. I gained my self-respect back, or maybe I never, maybe not back, because maybe I finally, for the first time, gained self respect. So
Mm.
that was it for me. Um, but what keeps me going? I mean, I think today it's a purpose, right? It's wanting to really help other people and really inspire people. What kept me going there? I just, again, I think self respect, and I think I love being in the flow. I read a book recently, The Flow. I can't remember. I think is the author's name is extremely long and hard to pronounce. Um, but yeah, it looks like you maybe know the book I'm talking about, DJ. But
I
but
do. I've heard it.
yeah, I just got in the flow, and I just kept going, and I like being in the flow, and I just, I also heard it call the jet stream, right? When a airplane gets high up in the jet stream, it takes a lot of energy to get up there, but once you're up there, it's easy. And so I just want to be in the jet stream and stay in the jet stream. So what keeps me going is I don't want to have to get out of it and then try to make my way back into it. It's just hard. So I want to stay up there. So that's really, for me, a lot of my life is set it and forget it. There's so many variables, life variables, right? And I heard it said by one of my incredible friends, mentors. He said, control the controllable. So there's certain things I could control, and work ethic and the things you do daily. I have control of that, especially if it's if I bracket it in the morning or at the end of the day. So those are, I guess, my two best answers for that.
I think they're money. I think they're money.
Yeah.
And
So
and so I want
did you always have this tenacious spirit, this tenacity to get after it, or was that something that developed later on?
I mean, listen, I wouldn't call tenacity sitting in my room watching The Odd Couples, right?
Right, that's
So,
what I was wondering.
right,
It didn't
yeah,
sound like
like
it.
but I will say this. When I started to realize, I don't know if I had this fantasy in my mind. I felt like I was this superhero that was dormant that, I was just, so I started like doing this is before I joined the martial arts, doing push-ups and some sit-ups. And I started out doing like 10 push-ups. And then maybe the next day I worked towards 11, and, maybe by the end of the week I got up to 20, and then the next week, a little bit more. And I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm making a point here. I'm at 230 push-ups, and I could probably do a lot more, but it's just time. It just takes so much time. But I do it in a row. I don't mean like I take a break and I do another, and I take a break and do it. No, the whole in a row. And so if you watch my new video, you'll see some of that. And listen, a Marine would laugh at me, would like, because it's like they're not perfect push-ups, okay? But they're 230. But anyway, so I just pushed myself, and I just said, okay. And I got joy, but satisfaction in the pursuit and in growing and becoming better. That's so the tenacity is just something that I started to learn. And I think it was cultivated, quite frankly, in the martial arts. It really was. It's the first place that I was ever able to really excel. And I was sort of this living example, living experiment of how tenacity and grit and perseverance, you can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you start to find that discipline in one area of life, even if it's totally unconnected to the other area, that discipline starts to show up in all the other places. Did you find yourself becoming more disciplined in your business and showing up better to your friends and family? So did you feel that bleed from it?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. And you're right, in things in your life, yes, it does bleed over. But the other part of the craziness of Steve Spiro is that I was so broken and wounded that it was so easy for me to get so drawn in. That's not the right word. I was just so focused on the martial arts at that moment because it gave me the ability to hide from people and not have to develop relationships. So it's hard to answer it the way you're saying, because when you bring in Brown family, because my mantra to my family was, I'm sorry, I'm busy. And I was proud of being busy. But quite frankly, looking back on it, it was my way of hiding from others, hiding from me, and knowing that there was a lot of emotional baggage and a lot of brokenness that it needed to still heal. Right. So it was me hiding. And so, yeah, it did bleed over, but not in certain areas because, again, of my challenges.
That was an absolutely incredible answer. That was very interesting. And I can tell you've done a lot of self-reflection and I think you're pretty self-aware based on that answer. That was amazing.
I want to dig deeper to that, because I did notice that, and you mentioned about love. You finally fell in love with yourself. I think that is kind of the journey, in a sense, or I call it the game of life. But a lot of the things you're touching on. Are you a Wayne Dyer guy at all? So some of the things you're kind of talking about and touching on, it just eerily resemble a lot of things that Wayne Dyer likes to talk about. And I, like falling in love with yourself to me was, at least the way Wayne Dyer explains it, is, this, he calls Earth Guide only is your ego. So, and or he refers to it as your meat suit, your avatar. Whatever you started this game, and or think of the movie Jumanji, and this is the body, and this is, the guy Mouse thought he was gonna, it was said Moose, and it's gonna be a big guy, and it ends up being Kevin Hart. So like, you get what you get, and that's. But you can, if you understand by learning the gifts, by pressing, in Jumanji the button and learn the gifts, you can master those gifts that you do have and start to fall in love with that. Is that when you really, is that your journey, you would say, you kind of went through? So like, okay, there was these things I was hiding from, but they're actually
Yeah, I
the,
mean,
the strong.
well, Dr. Dwayne Dwyer, didn't he read the book, write the book, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life? Is that the same Dr. Dwayne Dwyer?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just
yeah.
listened to him for the very first time, and
No,
very first time, and the reason that I was pushed, I've heard his name multiple times, but a big part of that particular book is on the Tao. So everyone's like, you wrote a book called The Tao of a Master Connector. I'm like,
big on
okay,
the down.
Wayne Dyer, the Tao. I should probably read the book, but I'll be honest, no, that I haven't had a lot of his mindset. He seems like an incredibly fascinating man, but no, I mean, it's nothing to do with that. But I definitely need to study more about his stuff for sure. Sounds like.
Check it out. Yeah, it's just the way you were explaining that whole journey.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar. So yeah, I do want to mention something. In your book, you had mentioned a book from Napoleon Hill that I've never listened to, and so I'm intrigued by it now, and so hopefully you know which one I'm talking about. But
Is it
you had
Outwitting
mentioned
the Devil?
no, no. So that was the one I got introduced to after, obviously, the one everybody knows, which is Think and Grow
Ah,
Rich.
there it
But
is. There it is. Yeah.
not Outwitting the Devil. It was another one that you had mentioned in the
Was
book.
Master Key to Riches,
Hmm.
Think and Grow Rich, obviously.
Maybe
I'm
something
trying
with
to
friends.
remember.
I think it was something with friends or connecting. But again, it just I was like, wow, hold on, what book is he talking about here? I've never even heard this one. I guess, but to go to Outwitting the Devil, since you've talked about it, Dan. So obviously you were on the first podcast with me and Dan was a big Wayne Dyer guy. He's actually who turned me on to Wayne Dyer. He's like, yeah, listen to me, you gotta follow. And so I finally, we were actually, odd story, but leaving Virginia Beach, and I was where now I live, and was listening to Outwitting the Devil because he said you have to listen to it, you have to listen to it, and I listened to it, and oh my goodness,
Looks like
uh,
Rhonda's saying How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
yes, that's a great book too. Yes, that is a very good book. But yeah, I forget again what book you had mentioned, but I guess final thoughts, Stacy,
Well, yeah,
questions, and
we've got another book here we want to talk about. Let's talk about the Tao.
Outwitting the Devil. Oh, okay, the Devil.
No,
Yeah,
no, no,
no,
no. I want to talk about Steve's book.
let's get into it then. So
Yeah.
again, let's put it up here. The Tao of the Master Connector. The way an introvert becomes a master connector. Now, if you haven't heard from some of the stories you shared already, there is a very clear path. But if you could, Steve, yeah, get into the four pillars and the foundation. And what really, I know this speaking, but what people can really gain from and hope to gain from the book. Let's say we have some more.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say this. So the Tao, I mean, some people have asked why the Tao, why that name. So in the martial arts, I trained in the Japanese styles, Japanese karate and Japanese jujitsu, and in that m- world, the word Do stands for way or path. So there's actually, if you do a little bit of studying, you'll hear Bushido, which is the way of the warrior. Bushi is warrior, so Bushido, Karate Do, which means the way of karate is empty hand. And so there's all sorts of dough is really important. But if I named the book the dough or the do of a master connector, that'd be a little weird. So the word Tao is a little more mainstream, right? The Tao of Pooh. Bruce Lee wrote a book called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do. So it's a little more mainstream. So I wanted to go with something that was a little more mainstream, but had that sort of Asian martial arts kind of feel, and that's why I went with that. But it's the way, it's the mindset. It's not necessarily a how-to instructional book, but it's sort of a mindset. And I think you had mentioned it either prior to us getting on live or just in the beginning. But yeah, there's 4 pillars to the book, and that is, the first pillar is, you know, having the grit to overcome obstacles. We were talking about that a lot today, and that's a big part of the book because it's a huge part of my life. And one of the things is I wasn't diagnosed. My wife always says, "Well, how do you know you really are?" Because I know I am. I'm dyslexic, right? But I believe it was a incredible blessing because I learned how to be a creative problem solver and get through challenges. And I self-taught myself Photoshop and Illustrator and all sorts of programs. Canva's not very what's the word I'm looking for? Intuitive. It's
Intuitive.
It's not intuitive. It's not super intuitive. But I learned it. I finally figured it out, right? So, but it's through persistence and grit, and now I could use it and leverage it, effectively, right? So grit is one. Second is being others focused. We spoke about that, and basically being a go-giver. And we talked about Bob Burke being on our show, and incredible, and John David Mann too, because he also was co-author in that book. And then the third is building community, growing connections, right? And to me, that's a huge part of what we're doing here. And the fourth is grit, overcoming obstacles, being others focused. I'm blanking on the fourth. How could I even forget the fourth? That's not good. But anyway, it's probably, if you have the book, it's probably on the back of the book. But anyway, it's been a crazy day. What's that?
No, I was going to say it's even in the 4 pillars are on the Audible. If you get to the
But it's just been life lessons, and it's what's neat about the book is you literally could open a page, just like randomly open a page, and then point your finger, and you could just talk. You could read what's there, or you could pick a chapter or a section in Audible and just play it. Right? It's like it doesn't have to be. It's not like if you don't start from the very beginning to the very end, you're going to miss something. It's just good, short, punchy, mindset stuff. And I love it. So yeah. So anyway,
it's very anecdotal. You give a lot of good stories and kind of anecdotes to relating things. Again, that's what I found reading it so far. Like and it's a great listen, guys. If you're a road warrior and you need to use car university or mobile university, as Zig Ziglar refers to it, it is a great listen to, because again, even your intro, I loved your intro, Steve. It seriously was money. But
and the fourth one was authenticity, which you covered here today too.
Yes, thank you. See that? Appreciate that. Thank you. Power of a team, right?
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Well, final thoughts, and I will throw these graphics back up again, guys. We have on with us. He is the host of the Master Connector Show. Did that pop up? Doing a little delay.
There we go.
There we go. Host of the Master Connector Show. This was from 320, but it was being unstoppable. That was his guest, Christy Thornton. Again, shout out to you for the graphics of ours as well, and then the author of the book we were just speaking of, the Tao of Master Connector. And Steve, again, just final thoughts on what connection and what community and what you're doing. Really, I guess. You talked about being the light. You talked about loving yourself and kind of falling in love with yourself in that journey. I guess, what can you share with anybody in the audience, or all of your following and your connectors as well, about being that light and the power and what it's done for you? If you could just share that.
Yeah, I'll just say this, right? So because I was very wounded and broken and so self-focused, I was wallowing in my weakness in that. And, because I was keeping it to myself and it was just self-focused. And I realized that the minute I was starting to get healed and I started to become others focused and led with those vulnerabilities and those weaknesses, I became powerfully confident. Because when you're hiding something, I don't know if you guys have kids. I think you said you do, DJ. But when they're hiding it, you can tell there's a confidence because they're hiding something, right? So when you're hiding, you're not as confident. So that gave me powerful confidence. And then the second thing is it made the connections extremely powerful and meaningful because I was breaking barriers down as I was speaking to people and sharing my vulnerabilities and they started to share theirs. Sometimes people would well up and they would cry or get emotional and they're like, you're a perfect stranger. I've never met you before, but I can't believe I'm telling you this stuff. And
Mm.
it's because you break barriers down. And so my feeling, and as men, there's three of us on this call. We're all men, right? We're not males, we're men, right? Big difference. But we're as men, we're sort of trained to, not show our feelings and, be a little stoic and we were convinced that there's strength in that, but it's not. I believe in our weakness, there's power. And so don't be afraid. And whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter, or man or woman, right? You can share that vulnerability as long as you're open with you're okay with it, right? Obviously, I don't suggest doing it if you're, in a place where you're still really, really raw from it and you're, very broken. But once you start getting healed, look to share, look to lead with those weaknesses and those vulnerabilities, and you'll see things change for you. And it breaks barriers. And I know, a big part of what we wanted to talk about was the power of connection. And I believe that truly allows you to connect very effectively for people or with people.
Mm. Coach, I mean, Steve, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah.
And just to back what you said, authenticity that you shared with us and the rawness you shared with us, even on the show and getting into some of the stories of kind of what led you through your journey. Thank you. And I agree. Like once you can own it all and own those scars, but then see them as scars that you can help somebody else either heal from or maybe not form so deep. The power there is unbelievable. So thank you so much, man. This is awesome. So again, anybody out there, like, subscribe if you know somebody who is struggling to connect. Again, today we are living in a world that people are struggling to figure out or remember how to connect. But I think at the same time, and Steve, you mentioned the what did you call it? What did you call the Zoom meetings? I forget what you called it. You had
Or connect calls or
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
I don't know. It was a great name that you called it, but I but these even this way is a great way to now form a community. You don't have to feel alone, even if the world that is in your looking out your doors seems scary and you can't connect there. There's other ways to connect. So please, like, find a way to connect with others. Today it is a lot easier than we want to believe today with the scary stuff of technology, phones, and things. We just have to, like you said, Steve, fall in love with ourselves, let down that guard, and just open these vulnerabilities and be willing to be your authentic self. And you will be surprised who connects with you. So, oh man, thank you so much, Steve. Coach,
This is awesome. Thank you, DJ. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, no,
Really
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. The answers were deep and insightful, and I loved it, and I appreciate that more than you know. And there's a lot to break down, DJ, from the whole persistence. Persistence is to the character of man as carbon is to steel. We can really dig on that one a little bit Thursday, but there's a lot to dig into from this discussion.
Absolutely.
There's so much, and Steve, what Coach is talking about. So Thursday we will recap it. We aren't starting our new show yet, so we will recap this show and just break down kind of Coach's perspective and kind of coaching. And we'll go back and forth. Obviously, let Coach dive deeper into the coaching, but yeah, there's so many, like he said, so many great things that our audience, our listeners, are gonna and yeah, like what he talked about. You just don't give up, and you'd be surprised what happens. So, and you nailed it with that. And so I really can't wait to deep dive into that stuff. So Thursday, y'all, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe, and follow to catch the recap on Thursday. We will do it Thursday mornings. Is typically when we go live, sometime between 9 and 10. No scheduled time for that, but you'll see it. You'll see us live. So again, Steve, thank you so much. Please,
you, John.
guys, check out, follow Steve, the Master Connector. You want to see his show. If you aren't connected with him on LinkedIn, his community is amazing. His show, he has amazing guests on, like you talked about. Congrats on the guest for your upcoming guest. I can't wait.
They can go to masterconnector.show if they want to see some of the future shows. So masterconnector.show, or go to stevespiro.com, and that's another way they could reach me. So, but yeah, appreciate that big time, and honor being on with you guys. Really honor.
Thank you, man. Have a great week, and remember, y'all, keep feeding good wolf.
Always on the red eye. This time around, it's not even about getting paid. I'm just an addict for the moment when the magic is made. And when you are who you really are, it can put you through